The restaurant was packed that afternoon, the kind of weekend rush where every table buzzed with chatter and the clatter of plates never seemed to stop. Marcus pushed open the glass door with his shoulder, balancing 3 insulated delivery bags in his hands. His bike helmet was still clipped under his chin, his shirt damp with sweat from the August heat. He didn't work in the restaurant. He worked for the delivery app that partnered with them, but today, the manager had called him directly. A mix-up had happened with one of their biggest family orders, and they needed someone reliable to run a replacement as fast as possible. Marcus didn't mind. 8 years delivering food had taught him to stay patient, stay polite, and stay humble. But that patience was about to be tested in ways he didn't expect. As soon as he walked in, one of the waitresses, tall, slim, with her blonde hair tied tight and a sour expression locked onto her face, turned sharply toward him. Her name tag said, Jenna, but Marcus already felt the attitude the moment her eyes caught his disassuming presence. She was leaning on a table, gossiping with another server while a family waited nearby for their bill. She saw Marcus holding the bags and instantly rolled her eyes. Ugh, not you again, she muttered loudly enough that the nearby customers turned their heads. Marcus blinked, staying calm. I'm here to drop off the replacement order for table 12, he said. The manager requested it. Jenna scoffed. But, of course he did. She strutted forward, heels clicking sharply on the tiles. You delivery guys are always screwing something up. If you people actually checked orders properly, I wouldn't have to deal with angry customers and extra work. Marcus kept a neutral tone. Ma'am, the mix-up wasn't on my end. The kitchen. Oh please, she snapped, marching closer, pointing at him as if he were a stain on the floor. You all say that. She then snatched one of the bags from his hand so aggressively that it jerked his arm. But the sudden force made the second insulated bag bump against a nearby table, a table she had just finished meticulously setting, complete with polished silverware, glass cups, and napkins folded into perfect triangles. The moment the bag brushed it, just barely shifting one napkin out of alignment, Jenna froze like she'd been personally attacked. The entire room seemed to pause. A few customers looked over, sensing some drama about to ignite. Jenna slowly turned toward the table, then toward Marcus. Her pupils narrowed with rage. You, she hissed, just ruined my table. Marcus looked down. The napkin had shifted maybe 2 inches. No spills, no breakage, nothing major. Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Don't touch anything, she snapped, slapping his hand away as he tried to adjust the napkin. Do you know how long it took me to set that? You delivery people are all the same. Careless. Lazy. Ruining other people's work because you can't do anything right. Marcus felt heat rise in his face, not from guilt but from sheer disbelief. It's just a napkin, he said quietly. I'll fix it. He reached again. That's when it happened. Jenna slapped him across the face. The sound cracked through the restaurant, a sharp, humiliating smack that made everyone's heads whip toward them. Marcus's cheeks stung immediately, and his jaw clenched. He wasn't a confrontational man, but that slap, it was something else. It wasn't anger. It wasn't stress. It was pure, deliberate humiliation. A show. A performance meant to assert dominance in front of an entire room. A child in a booth gasped. Someone murmured, "Did she just?" Another customer pulled out their phone instinctively. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't push back. He didn't even step forward. He simply breathed, steady and controlled, even as Jenna stood over him, chest heaving. "That's what you get," she spat. "For messing up my table and making me redo everything. You think you can come in here sweaty, gross, touching everything, and expect people to just deal with it?" Marcus swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to touch it. And you didn't need to do that." "Oh, shut up," she snapped, flipping her hair. "You delivery clowns act like victims. Maybe if you had a real job, you'd understand responsibility." Some customers looked horrified. Others looked ready to intervene. But Jenna kept going, fueled by her own ego. "Get out," she ordered. "Drop the bags and go. I'll tell the manager you messed everything up again." Marcus steadied himself. "I'll stay until the manager comes. He asked me to deliver this in person." God, you're stubborn, Jenna hissed. I said leave. Now. Before Marcus could respond, a deep, familiar voice spoke from behind her. Jenna, what did you just do? The air tightened. Jenna froze. The manager, Carlos, stood a few feet behind her. Middle-aged, calm, respected, and known for keeping the restaurant running like a family. He had witnessed everything, and the expression on his face was not confusion. It was something darker. Controlled fury. Carlos! Jenna exclaimed, instantly shifting her posture, smiling so wide it looked painful. Oh my God, thank goodness you're here. He messed everything up. Look at the table. And then he tried to argue with me in front of customers. And she pretended to choke up. He scared me. A few customers snorted under their breath. Carlos stepped around her, approaching the table. He looked at the napkin, one napkin, then at the delivery bag Marcus still held. That's what you call ruining a table? He said flatly. Jenna blinked, thrown off. Carlos, it's the principal. He touched. Don't, he interrupted calmly. Do not lie. I watched everything from the counter. Jenna's face fell. Carlos turned to Marcus. Are you okay? Marcus nodded once. I'm fine. The restaurant was silent now. Every customer leaned in a little. Jenna stammered. Carlos, hold on, I didn't know you were watching. That's the problem, Carlos said. You act differently when you think no one is watching. Her mouth opened and shut like a fish. Carlos faced the customers briefly. Everyone, thank you for your patience. This will be handled. Then he turned back to Jenna. Go to the break room and wait for me. What? Carlos, I can explain. Now, he said sharply. Marcus had never seen her look so pale. She stormed off, trembling with anger and fear, muttering under her breath. As soon as she disappeared behind the employee door, the customers began whispering around the dining area. Carlos sighed and rubbed his forehead. Marcus, I'm really sorry. She had no right to put her hands on you, or talk to you like that. It's okay, Marcus said quietly. I don't want trouble. You didn't cause trouble. She did. Carlos gestured to the bags. Is that the replacement? Marcus handed him the bags. Still warm. Thank you. You didn't deserve that kind of treatment. A nearby couple stepped forward. We recorded the whole thing, the man said softly. If you need it. Marcus shook his head. Thank you. But I don't want to escalate things. Carlos looked at him with an unreadable expression. Admiration, maybe. Respect. She slapped you, Carlos said. In front of a full room. And you stayed calm. I've seen people lose their minds over cold fries. You handled yourself with dignity. Marcus smiled faintly. Just trying to do my job. Carlos nodded. I'll be back. The manager headed toward the break room, his footsteps heavy with purpose. Marcus didn't intend to stay, but his cheeks still throbbed, and something in his gut told him to wait. Customers kept shooting him looks of sympathy. Even the kitchen staff peered out, whispering. A minute later, raised voices erupted from the break room. I didn't even hit him that hard. Jenna cried. He exaggerated it. You hit him at all. Carlos shot back. Are you even listening to yourself? He bumped my table. I worked hard on that. It's a napkin. A napkin. You're taking his side? Over me. I'm taking the side of basic human decency. The argument escalated. Someone inside knocked something over. Jenna's voice cracked into a panicked pitch. Then, the break room door flung open. Carlos stepped out, his expression cold. Jenna followed, face blotchy, eyes wet with rage. You can't do this to me, she yelled. Carlos didn't raise his voice. Please gather your things. The restaurant went silent again. What? Jenna whispered. You're done. Effective immediately. Her jaw dropped. Fired? You're firing me? Because of him. Carlos stared at her. Yes. The word hit her like a hammer. He's just a delivery guy, she screamed, pointing at Marcus with a trembling finger. I'm a server. I've been here for 2 years. And in those 2 years, Carlos said gently but firmly, I have had more complaints about your attitude than every other staff member combined. Today was the final straw. Jenna's hands shook violently. This is unbelievable. You're ruining my life over a stupid table. No, Carlos said. You slapped someone. That's what ruined your job. She looked around desperately, expecting customers to defend her, but every face stared back in judgment. Even her gossip partner had stepped far away from her. Jenna let out a choked sob, grabbed her purse from behind the counter, and stormed out through the front door, pushing past customers who made no effort to hide their disgust. The door slammed behind her. Carlos let out a slow breath. He walked back to Marcus. I'm so sorry you had to experience that, he said again. She's gone. Permanently. Marcus lifted one shoulder. People have bad days. That wasn't a bad day, Carlos said. That was who she truly is. For a moment, they both stood in the doorway, letting the customers settle back into their meals. Carlos then asked something unexpected. Marcus, do you have a minute? There's something I want to talk to you about. Something Jenna never knew. Marcus blinked. About what? Carlos gave a small, meaningful smile. The real reason we call you, personally, every time something important needs to get delivered. Marcus frowned slightly, confused. He had always wondered that. He wasn't the fastest delivery guy in the city, nor the youngest. Yet this restaurant always requested him specifically. Carlos motioned for him to follow. It's time I tell you, he said. Because after what just happened, you deserve to know. Marcus hesitated for a heartbeat, then walked with him toward the staff office. Little did he know. The truth Carlos was about to reveal would change the entire direction of the story, and Jenna had no idea what storm she had just triggered. Marcus followed Carlos down the hallway, past the kitchen's swinging double doors, where cooks peeked out curiously as if sensing something important was about to unfold. The staff office was small. Just a desk, a filing cabinet, and a corkboard crowded with schedules and notes. Carlos closed the door behind them, shutting out the sounds of the restaurant entirely. Sit, he said gently. Marcus did, though he still looked unsure, one hand absent-mindedly grazing his cheek where the slap had landed. Carlos sat across from him, folding his hands on the desk. I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time, he began. But I didn't want to make things awkward. You know how this business is, fast, chaotic, never the right time. Marcus offered a polite smile. I get it. No worries. Carlos leaned forward. Marcus, do you know how many delivery drivers this restaurant has seen? Hundreds. Maybe more. Most are fine. A few are trouble. But out of all of them, only one has ever had this place's loyalty. You. Marcus blinked. Me. Carlos nodded slowly. You probably think we call you because you're reliable. And you are. But that's not the whole story. A silent beat passed. Carlos exhaled deeply. The truth is, you saved my son. Marcus froze. Confusion flickered through him. The son? Carlos nodded. 3 years ago. Marcus furrowed his brow, scanning his memories. Deliveries, rush hours, long nights, rainstorms. He had seen so many customers and families over the years. But nothing specific came to mind. You don't understand, Marcus said gently. Carlos's voice softened. My son, Mateo. He was 8 at the time. You were delivering downtown near the river, one of those high-order days. You were on your bike. The room suddenly felt smaller. Marcus held his breath. You saw a kid run into the street chasing a soccer ball, Carlos continued. A car was coming. You dropped your bike. You grabbed him just in time. Marcus's eyes widened. He remembered. The small boy in a red hoodie. The screech of a car. The scream of a woman. Carlos swallowed hard, voice trembling. That was my son, Marcus. You saved his life. Marcus leaned back, stunned. I didn't know. I never knew who he belonged to. You didn't ask for credit, Carlos said. You didn't wait for thanks. You just got back on your bike and kept going. He shook his head with quiet awe. I recognized you months later when you came by with an order. You looked exactly the same helmet, same focus. That's when I told the owner, and we agreed. Whenever something important needs to be delivered, we call you. No one else. Marcus was speechless. I always wanted to tell you, Carlos said softly. But you're a humble guy. I didn't want you to feel stared at or treated differently. But after what happened today, he shook his head. You deserve to know. Marcus stared at the floor, overwhelmed. He had lived a quiet life, full of small acts no one ever really noticed. He never expected any of them to come back around. I'm glad I was there, he whispered. Carlos nodded. I'm glad too. For a moment, both men sat in reflective silence. Then Carlos straightened. But that's not all I need to talk to you about. Marcus looked up. There's an opening, Carlos continued. Assistant manager. Full-time. Benefits. Regular hours. I've been trying to fill it for 3 months. I wasn't sure you'd be interested, or if I'd scare you away by asking. He offered a warm smile. But after today, I want to offer it to you first. Marcus's jaw dropped. Me? You have integrity. You have patience. You treat people better than they deserve. That's exactly the kind of energy I want on the floor. Marcus took a slow breath, processing. His life had been unstable for years. Part-time gigs, delivery shifts that stretched deep into the night, barely enough to keep the lights on in his small apartment. A real job. Stability. Respect. It felt unreal. Carlos, I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Carlos said gently. That's all I'm asking. It's your choice. No pressure. But the offer stands. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll think about it. Really? Carlos smiled, relief washing over him. Good. Just then, a knock sounded on the door. A young host, eyes wide, poked his head in. Carlos? You need to come out front. Carlos frowned. What now? The host whispered. Jenna came back. Carlos stiffened. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. She's yelling, the host added. A lot. Carlos rubbed his temples. Of course she is. Marcus stood automatically. I'll stay out of the way. No, Carlos said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Come with me. You shouldn't hide. You didn't do anything wrong. They left the office and walked out into the restaurant. Jenna stood near the host stand, mascara streaking down her face, hair disheveled, clutching her phone like it was her lifeline. Her entire body shook with a mix of fury and panic. As soon as she saw Marcus step out, she lunged forward. You, she screamed. You did this. This is your fault. Carlos moved between them instantly. That's enough. Jenna pointed wildly at Marcus, her voice cracking. He ruined my entire job. My rent. My life. You took his side and now I have nothing. Jenna, Carlos said firmly, you were fired for your actions. She shook her head violently. No. I was fired because you're obsessed with him. The customers gasped again. A couple of people even raised their phones to record, the moment already spiraling. Carlos held up a hand toward the crowd. Please put your phones down. This is a private matter. Some obeyed, but not all. Jenna's voice turned shrill, unstable. You don't respect me. Nobody here does. I work my butt off and you treat me like trash because what? Because I slapped a delivery guy? People do worse every day. She whipped her gaze toward Marcus. You should have left when I told you to. Marcus stayed calm, but deep inside he could feel something shift. Not anger, not fear, but a deep sadness for how broken her pride was. Carlos took a slow breath. Jenna. Before this gets worse for you. And oh, she screamed. Not until he apologizes. Marcus's brow furrowed. Apologize? For what? For embarrassing me. For making me look like the bad guy. For ruining my... A woman from table 5 stood up suddenly. You are the bad guy, she said boldly. Jenna spun around. Excuse me? The woman crossed her arms. I watched you slap him for moving a napkin. A napkin. And then you screamed at him for doing nothing. You should have been fired a long time ago. A man at another table chimed in. She's right. Another customer added, you made a fool of yourself, not him. Jenna's face drained of color. Stop, stop talking. Everyone stop. But the room was no longer on her side. You're blaming him for your own behavior, someone else said. Get out, another voice added. Jenna clutched her purse, trembling. Her anger suddenly turned into frantic desperation. She looked at Carlos again. You can't just fire me. You need proof. You need. I watched it with my own eyes, Carlos said. She shook her head again, hysterical. No. I can take this to HR. To corporate. I'll sue. Oh. That's enough, Jenna, Carlos said softly, but the softness in his tone was somehow sharper than any shout. Go home. Please. Don't make this worse. Jenna's breathing quickened until she was almost hyperventilating. Then she snapped. Fine, she screamed, voice echoing across the entire restaurant. You're all gonna regret this. Customers stepped back. The staff tensed up. Marcus instinctively moved behind the counter, not out of fear but out of caution. Jenna stormed toward the door, but at the last second she turned around and pointed at Marcus one more time. This isn't over, she hissed. Then she kicked the front door open and stomped out into the parking lot. The door slammed louder than before. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then a man near the window said, under his breath, "That woman needs help." Carlos inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly, as though releasing months of pent-up stress. He turned to Marcus. "I'm sorry you had to witness that. Again." Marcus shook his head. "It's not your fault." Carlos gave a small nod. "Still, I'm sorry." The customers slowly returned to their meals. Some even clapped Marcus on the shoulder in passing, offering quiet support. But Marcus sensed something unsettled in the air. Jenna's last words weren't just bitterness. They were a promise. Carlos turned to Marcus with a concerned look. "Listen, let's get you out of here for today. You've been through enough." Marcus nodded. But as he walked toward the exit, he spotted something through the window. Jenna, still in the parking lot, sitting in her car, staring at the building, and staring specifically at him. Something in her eyes was different now, not fury, not humiliation. Something colder. Something calculating. Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. Carlos noticed his expression. "What's wrong?" Marcus kept his eyes on the parking lot. "She's still here," he murmured. "Watching." Carlos followed his line of sight and cursed under his breath. "This isn't good," Carlos muttered. "She's unstable right now. I don't want you riding your bike home like this." Marcus swallowed. "I'll be fine." "No," Carlos said firmly. "You won't. And I'm not letting you leave alone until she's gone." Marcus didn't argue. The tension was too thick. Minutes passed. 10 minutes. 15. But Jenna didn't leave. She just sat there, engine running, glaring like she was planning something. And Marcus realized, this story wasn't ending with her firing. Something deeper was coming. Something far more dangerous. Something that wouldn't stay in the parking lot. Marcus stood near the front windows of the restaurant, eyes locked on Jenna's car as the rumble of its engine vibrated faintly through the glass. The late afternoon sun bleached the windshield, but even through the glare, Marcus could see her silhouette, rigid posture, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, eyes burning with something that didn't feel like simple anger anymore. Carlos stood beside him, arms crossed, jaw tense. "She's not thinking straight," he muttered. "Or maybe this is exactly how she thinks." Marcus didn't take his eyes off the car. "What do we do?" "We wait," Carlos said. "She's stubborn. If we step outside now, she might follow you. Or worse." A few staff members peeked from behind the counter, whispering. Someone from the kitchen asked if they should call the police, but Carlos shook his head. "Not yet. Let's see if she leaves first." Minutes ticked by. 6, 10, 13. Every one of them dragging like thick syrup. Customers had mostly finished their meals. A few lingered out of curiosity, their eyes bouncing between Marcus, Carlos, and the idling car outside. It wasn't everyday entertainment. It was the kind of tension that tasted cold and metallic in the air. Finally, Jenna flung her car door open so violently it bounced back. She stepped out, heels clicking aggressively as she marched toward the restaurant. Carlos cursed softly. "Here we go." She stomped right up to the entrance and shoved the door open. Every head turned. Her hair was wild now, her mascara smeared, her breathing sharp and uneven. But her expression, God, her expression, wasn't fury anymore. It was determination. Cold, misguided conviction. She pointed at Marcus with a trembling finger. "You're not going home until you talk to me." Carlos stepped forward instantly. "Jenna, go home. Now." She ignored him. "Marcus, why didn't you just apologize? Why didn't you just leave? You made all this worse." Marcus stared at her, calm but firm. "You slapped me." She flinched at the truth like it was a physical blow. I didn't mean, okay, maybe I meant it a little, but you embarrassed me. I can't lose my job over one mistake." "One mistake?" Carlos echoed incredulously. "Yes," she cried, her voice cracking. "One stupid mistake. I've been stressed. I've been working double shifts. My landlord wants to raise my rent. My boyfriend dumped me last week. Everything is falling apart and I just needed things to be perfect today." Marcus' voice was soft. "I'm sorry you're going through all that. But hitting me wasn't the answer." For a split second, Jenna's expression wavered, something vulnerable, broken. Then it hardened again. "You could have just forgiven me. You could have pretended it never happened. But instead you stood there and let Carlos fire me." Carlos snapped. "I fired you because you slapped someone in front of 50 witnesses." Jenna's breathing sped up again. Tears welled but never fell. "I need my job, Carlos, please. I don't have anything left." The pause. A long, heavy pause. And Marcus, despite everything, felt a drop of sympathy. He could see the desperation radiating off her like heat waves. Carlos sighed, rubbing his forehead. "There are boundaries, Jenna. And you crossed all of them today." Her lips quivered. "I can't go home like this. I don't know what I'll do. She stopped abruptly, swallowing hard. "I don't want to do something stupid." Carlos softened. "We can help you find resources. But you can't work here anymore. You know that." But the shift in her expression was sudden, violent, abrupt. As if the plea had been just a mask. She turned back to Marcus, anger flooding her eyes like gasoline catching flame. "You ruined everything. You want to look like the hero? But heroes fall too." Marcus felt tension coil in his stomach. Carlos stepped between them again. "Jenna, that's enough. If you keep threatening people, I will call the police." The room held its breath. She stared at Carlos. Then at Marcus. Then at her own shaking hands. Finally, she exhaled violently, spun around, and stormed out of the restaurant like a tornado dying out but still leaving chaos in its wake. The door slammed behind her. Carlos immediately pulled out his phone. "I'm calling security. She's not stable." But before he could dial, a loud crashing sound echoed from outside. Glass shattering. Metal scraping. People jumped. Marcus sprinted to the window, and his stomach dropped. Jenna, in a blind rage, had swung open her car door so hard it smashed into the vehicle parked beside hers. The owner came rushing out from the sidewalk, shouting, "Hey! What the hell is wrong with you?" Jenna screamed back, "Move!" then kicked her own car door shut, jumped in, slammed it into reverse, and screeched backwards so fast she almost hit a family stepping off the curb. Tires shrieked. A horn blared. People jumped out of the way. Carlos yelled, "Call 911." One server already had her phone out, trembling as she dialed. In seconds, Jenna's car screeched out of the parking lot and disappeared into traffic, weaving erratically. Marcus exhaled shakily. This is getting out of control." Carlos nodded grimly. "And it's not your fault. Not any of it." They spent the next hour giving statements to police. Customers who had witnessed everything also stayed behind to report. By the time the officers left, dusk had washed over the sky. Most of the crowd had gone. Staff wiped tables quietly. The restaurant felt drained, like everyone had shared the same emotional storm. Marcus sat at an empty booth, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. His cheeks still throbbed from the slap earlier, but what scared him more wasn't the physical pain. It was how far Jenna had spiraled. Carlos joined him, setting 2 cups of ice water on the table. Drink. Marcus nodded, taking a sip. You okay? Carlos asked softly. Marcus exhaled. Yeah. I think so. You handled today better than anyone I've ever seen, Carlos said. Most people would have yelled back. Or fought. Or run. You stayed calm through everything. Marcus chuckled tiredly. Life's taught me to be patient. Carlos hesitated before saying, Marcus, about the job offer. Marcus lifted his head. I wasn't offering it out of pity, Carlos said. I've wanted to ask you for months. You're exactly the type of person we need here. And after seeing how you handled today, I'm even more certain. Marcus swallowed. I really appreciate it. I need some time. My life's been unpredictable for so long. I don't know what a stable job even feels like anymore. Carlos smiled gently. Then maybe it's time to find out. Before Marcus could respond, the front door opened softly. A woman stepped inside, short, dark curls, warm brown eyes, wearing a simple jacket. She looked nervous, clutching her purse. Carlos squinted. Can I help you? She approached Marcus slowly. You're Marcus, right? Marcus stood, unsure. Yes. Can I help you? Her eyes watered. I'm Jenna's sister. Carlos stiffened instantly. Marcus inhaled slowly. She held up both hands quickly. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to cause trouble. I wanted to apologize. For her. Marcus blinked, surprised. She came home sobbing, the sister said, voice trembling. She said she messed up everything. I didn't get the whole story, but I could tell she was in a really bad place mentally. Tears slid down her cheeks. I've been trying to get her to seek help for months. She wouldn't listen. Today I think she hit her breaking point. Carlos exchanged a glance with Marcus, concerned, but cautious. The sister continued. She knows she's wrong. She knows she crossed every line. She's just not okay right now. And I'm trying to keep her from doing something she can't take back. Marcus stepped forward gently. I don't hold hate toward her. I never did. The sister let out a shaky breath. Thank you. That means more than you know. They stood there in the quiet restaurant. A delivery man, a restaurant manager, and the sister of the woman who had caused all the chaos. Then Marcus said something he didn't expect to say. Tell her? I hope she gets the help she needs. The sister covered her mouth, trying not to cry. I will. Thank you. She left with a small nod, quietly closing the door behind her. Carlos let out a slow breath. You're a better man than most. Marcus shrugged. I've seen people fall apart before. Everyone's fighting battles we don't see. Carlos smiled. Exactly why you'd make a damn good manager. Marcus chuckled softly. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. I'll take the job. Carlos's face lit up. Are you serious? Marcus extended his hand. Serious. Carlos shook it firmly. Welcome to the team. Relief, pride, and clarity washed through Marcus like a warm breeze after a storm. For the first time in a long time, he felt like something in his life was shifting toward a better path. As he prepared to leave for the night, he looked once more at the empty parking lot where Jenna had stood earlier. Life wasn't perfect. People weren't perfect. But justice had happened. Growth had happened. And healing, maybe not for everyone yet, but for someone, had begun. Marcus stepped outside, the cool night air brushing his face. His bike waited chained to the post. Tomorrow he would start a new chapter, one built on respect, dignity, and purpose. Behind him, the restaurant lights glowed warmly. And somewhere across town, Jenna, broken, flawed, human, was starting her own path toward consequences and recovery. It wasn't a neat ending, but it was a real one. And sometimes that's the most powerful kind. Subscribe to Residential Stories to hear more real, raw, emotional journeys where karma plays its part and humanity finds its truth.